Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Health Coach Success Virtual Masterclass. My co-host Laura and I worked hard to pull together this special online event just for you. It's a 5-day mini course in which we interview the best and brightest health coach and marketing experts on the planet to try to understand how they've become such great coaches and entrepreneurs. Included in the 20-plus expert interviews are some names you might recognize. Primal Health Coach Institute founder Mark Sisson, celebrity nutrition expert and New York Times bestselling author J.J. Virgin, author, cardiologist, and staunch health coach advocate Dr. William Davis, Michelle Liotta of Health Coach Power Community, Michelle Norris, CEO of Paleo FX and ID Life Nutrition, and many, many more. The Health Coach Success Virtual Masterclass is now available and totally free for a limited time. Check it out at primalhealthcoach.com/success. Today on the show, we're welcoming Samantha Gladish. Samantha has a lot going on. She's a podcaster, author, and a holistic nutritionist specializing in women's hormone health. Samantha and her team of coaches are dedicated to helping women achieve more powerful, holistic, purpose-driven lives using tactics like simple and sustainable methods of stress management, weight loss, detoxification, hormone balancing, natural beauty care, and green living. Samantha's list of credentials is broad and includes a registered holistic nutritionist from the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition, registered orthomolecular holistic practitioner, hormone cure certified coach, certified hatha yoga instructor, metabolic balance weight loss coach, as well as fitness fanatic, foodie, and qualitarian pioneer. She's built an incredibly successful business, and we know our listeners love listening to how successful coaches have made it happen. The show notes for this episode and all previous episodes of Health Coach Radio can always be found at primalhealthcoach.com/radio. And without further ado, please welcome Samantha Gladish. All right, good. Welcome, Samantha Gladish. How are you?
I'm so great. Thanks so much for having me here today.
Of course. We're excited to chat with you. Always excited to chat with folks who are practicing out there in the world and doing lots of different things. And it's just so fun to hear what everybody's doing with their health coaching practice. So why don't you tell us in a real nutshell what you're doing, but more importantly, kind of how you got to where you are, like the kind of the origin story of what got you to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do currently have an online nutrition business. And so I work with women all over the globe. I primarily focus in weight loss and women's hormonal health. And so we do one-on-one coaching. And when I say we, I do also have another health coach that works with me in my business and works with our one-on-one clients. And I have my assistant too, so she's awesome. And so we do one-on-one coaching, and we also have different online programs, and I do have a health podcast as well. And so lots of things going on over in my nutrition world, and dabbling in all kinds of stuff, which is really fun. And it really all began, well, many, many years ago. I've been coaching for 15 years. I was coaching even before I was really officially certified to any degree. I was just super passionate about health and wellness. And when I was going through university, I was actually studying religion. Which it's wild. I went to university because I was going to become a teacher. I wanted to teach high school. And then I realized very quickly that this is not what I want to do. And I was already super health conscious and going to the gym and just diving into all things health and wellness and fitness. And then it never really occurred to me that I could do this full time. Like, this could actually be a career. And so I studied, I did a specialist in religion, and it was actually really cool because I got to study like Buddhism and Christianity and Judaism, and like just learned so many cool traditions and religions, and it was really cool. But I was like, I don't want to do anything with this. And so graduated from UFT, University of Toronto, and then I went on to study nutrition. And I will never forget in my business nutrition class, the teacher saying, you guys can charge $75 an hour. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh my God, this is amazing. Like work with so many people and I'm going to make great money. This is so awesome. And so graduated from nutrition school. And then here I was thinking like, okay, great. Like all these people are going to come knocking down my door. And that did not happen. Yeah. And so I went to work in the health field. So I went to different health food stores and I was working part-time in health food stores. I was teaching Pilates classes, kickboxing classes. I would maybe here and there get a client on the side and do some meal planning for them. And then I went on to manage a health food store. So that became a real full-time job. And then from there, I went on to become a sales rep. So I was working for different supplement companies. And as this was all going on, I was trying to get clients on the side and trying to do all of that until one day, like I was just basically going from job to job to job. And then I finally was like, okay, like I keep thinking I'm going to find this job that's going to give me the happiness that I'm looking for, but it's really not. It's not about the job. It's, I really have to carve my own path here. And so that's when I started to go to different networking events and I started to dive into business. I started to dive into marketing. Here I was investing all of my money into more courses, thinking that I needed to study all of the things. I needed to know about all digestive issues and all hormonal issues and kids' health and all of these things, immunology. And so I was investing in all of these different courses thinking if I had more certifications, that would get me more clients. And that's not the case. And so I started to put my energy into business and marketing. And then I hired a coach, a business coach. And from there, business really started to take off and I got a real understanding of how to put myself out there and how to build a brand. And I actually got fired from my job because I was still working full time, but I was not giving them a lot of my energy. And so, they let me go and it was fine because it was such a blessing in disguise. And I was like, the universe did for me what I couldn't do for myself. And I got the boot and there was no plan B. I had to dive full force into my nutrition business and I haven't looked back.
Awesome. That's an amazing story. There's so many good things there to learn from.
Wow. So many nuggets in there. And you know what? The biggest takeaway for everybody listening right now is that just knowing more and feeling like you know it all does not make you a better coach and it doesn't make you more successful in this business. That you need to focus on business and you need to put yourself out there and you need to focus on marketing. Yay! We might as well just be done now. Like the podcast is over. Lesson learned, So what was there an aha moment for you that had you make that mental switch?
That's a good question. There's a few moments that stick out. One moment in particular, I will never forget. So when I was a sales rep, one of my girlfriends, who is a really successful nutritionist, she was actually working with the supplement company that I was a part of. And this company hired her to basically be like a brand ambassador. So she would get paid to do all these speaking events. And here I was actually the one like setting up all her events and going to all these events. And I would be sitting in the back of the room watching her speak and being like, I'm like an employee of this company, but she's getting paid to like go do the thing that she really wants to do, that she really thrives at. And I'm sitting in the back of the room like, I want to do that. Like, I know I could do that. Why am I sitting here? So that was that moment. There was a big like aha for me of like, I got to really start putting my energy into what it is I really want. And yeah.
It's like a little nugget of confidence just sort of bubbled up in that moment and you grabbed it. And I think that coaches any entrepreneur lets those little nuggets of confidence kind of float by without really taking action. And you did grab it. So
right.
Good for you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Well, so I wrote down when you're talking your story, more certifications does not equal more clients. So coaches, stop collecting certifications, just start working.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that I love that you mentioned is that you hired a business coach to help you make this switch. Can you talk about the process of finding a business coach and what they did for you, how you worked with them, sort of that experience? I think a lot of entrepreneurs think they know what a business coaching relationship might be like, but maybe have no line of sight on that really.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was attending different networking events. And when I say networking events, I mean events like in the health space, but more geared towards the business and marketing side of it. And so a lot of seeds were getting planted, and I would hear things about growing your list and doing webinars, and like this was all so new to me. And so it was through those networking events that I ended up meeting my business coach and just hopped on a call with her and just really discussed, where I was in my business. And I really didn't have a business at that point, but where I really wanted to go. And so she really helped to lay that groundwork for me in terms of, who is your niche and who's your ideal client? Who do you want to work with? And let's get clear on the messaging for that ideal client. And then now we can create content for that client. And then from there, you can share this on social media. You would share this in your newsletter list. You can do this via webinar, on podcasts, whatever it might be. And then this is what's going to really bring your ideal client to you. And then from there, I started to work on getting my packages in place and what it was I was really going to offer this ideal client to really help support them in their health journey and their transformation. And then it started to like go from there. And I started to really get the hang of it and how my content was so important and my messaging was so important, and to just consistently speak to that woman that I really wanted to support. And it just kind of started to spiral from there, which then led into creating some online programs and then, doing webinars and launching the podcast and all of that.
Yes. Okay. I want to just pause because that's so we can identify those steps, because they are honestly the non-negotiable steps. Step 1, identify your ideal client. Step 2, build a signature program that solves their problem. Step 3, develop content that talks about the signature program and gets your ideal client excited. And then step 4 is to level up, build up the group programs, kind of go next level. Those, I feel like those steps, and we teach that, Laura and I teach that to our students as well, our coaching students. That's how you do it. Those are the steps. And we've seen people that say, I want to build a group program. I want to do a retreat. I want to do this. I want to do that. And they don't even know who their ideal client is yet. And they haven't figured out how to solve his or her problem yet. You have to start with that.
Absolutely.
Or they haven't even coached anyone yet.
Yes, I was going to go there. I was just going to say that, I do have like 15 years of coaching experience behind me. And that's what made me the expert, was being in the field and speaking to people one-on-one. And so, I do mentor a lot of students and practitioners as well. And again, so many of them want to just dive into this group coaching program, which I think is fantastic, 1000%. And that is something that you can absolutely scale and build and whatnot. But if you haven't worked with anybody one-on-one, and now you go into this group coaching program and you got 20 people in front of you and you don't know how to manage emotions and questions and mindset, that's a lot to take on.
Absolutely. We talk all the time about how important it is to coach people one-on-one, so that, and you need to build that sort of foundation and base, because that creates the foundation and base for your group program, because now things are predictable. Erin talks about all the time about how she's got this one signature product that she applies to basically everyone. The difference is going to be the person that enters into that program, right? So that makes it unique. But she's done it enough times. She's had enough quote unquote reps under her belt that she can almost predict what the challenges are going to be. And then that makes building the group program much more impactful for the actual participants versus trying to go into a group program where you just have no idea about this stuff and you're trying to address it on the fly, right? Or you're thinking, it's
crazy to me that so many coaches start with the group it took me 5 years before I was comfortable enough to say, okay, I could probably work a group program out now.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
I mean, I kind of started out, I did like you. So this is the other thing I heard you say, is that you were coaching before you were ever even certified.
Yes.
Right? So first of all, that's completely fine for everybody listening, right? There is no legal or regulatory authority that says you have to have a certification or a license or anything like that to get out there and help people. Coaching is totally legal everywhere, and it's unregulated. And I hear that as I'm the admissions director for our course. And I hear this from people all the time. Well, I'm kind of already helping people now. I'm already doing it. So clearly there's a need for this. How do I get myself organized? I kind of feel like I need a credential to really, I don't know, be, what's the word I'm looking for credibility purposes. And I'm like, in whose eyes, actually?
Totally.
Because I'm telling you.
In your own.
Exactly. And if that gives you confidence, and don't get me wrong, I think having a program and a credential from a program that trains you, educates you, resources you, provides you with tools, invaluable.
For sure.
But just having a piece of paper from some program that really didn't teach you anything you needed is kind of useless and a waste of money.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I totally agree.
So I love that. And I encourage folks who are curious about this stuff and want to find out if coaching is even for them, find out more about what coaching is really all about, because it's different than what a lot of people think it is. They think it's just a fast track to being a dietitian without the degree. No, that's not what this is all about. But the fact of the matter is you got to get out there. No, that is no doubt your biggest training ground was the people that you helped in the past.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's really funny because during university, how I was paying for university, I was bartending, and right beside the bar that I worked at was a health food store. So I would always go into the health food store and like try different products and do all these things and cleanses. And then all the customers in the bar who I'm serving martinis to would be like, what detox are you doing? What are you trying? And I would sit down with them as they're drinking their martini and be like, okay, here's the cleanse you need to do. Here's what I did a couple weeks ago. And like, really, it just started from just naturally having conversations with people and sharing my experience.
Yeah. When you were telling your story about what got you into coaching, I don't know that I picked up on any particular health crisis you had. It was more, it sounds to me like it was just a personal interest that spun into a desire to coach women. Did you have a personal health transformation or no?
Yeah. So, I mean, I struggled, I would say, in my teens with PMS and digestive issues. That was always really my area of weakness, is my digestion. And so I definitely had a lot of issues in that regard. But, and, you know, as a teenager, you are eating fast food and sugar and all of the things, right? So you're not really taking the best care of yourself. But I was always innately interested in, like I said, you know, health and wellness, and I was very active. And so I also was put on the birth control pill when I was 16. And so that, you know, I learned a lot over the years about the detriments of the birth control pill. And as I just was kind of doing my own research and studying and whatnot. And so when I had that light bulb moment go off that, oh, I could do this as a career, I could be a nutritionist. I went and I applied, and my very first month in nutrition school, they talked about the birth control pill. I got off the pill, and I went on my own sort of transformation in terms of coming off the pill and regulating my cycle and really healing and supporting my hormones and my digestion. And so that definitely was, you know, my sort of personal transformation. And then more recently, like in 2017, I was diagnosed with autoimmune Hashimoto's. And then that has also led to a whole other journey of really healing, you know, my immune system and supporting autoimmune and thyroid health and whatnot. So it's, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks.
I love that. So I want to kind of touch on this business coach again, because first of all, I would love to hear what it was that made you think, I need this. I need what this person provides for me. I think that's a lesson we can all learn when we're thinking about who's going to hire us. But also, how much of what this business coach brought to the table for you is actually information versus just the collaboration, the holding you accountable, the keeping you on track, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So when I was at these different events, and like I said, I was learning about things like list building and doing webinars and, you know, building your brand and your niche. It was all so new to me. So in that moment, it was just super clear that like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I can't navigate this on my own. And so that's when I really went to seek out help. And I was also really committed. I was super serious about like, this is it. Like, this is what I'm doing. There is no plan B. I need to move forward and figure this out. So if whoever it is I need to bring on board to do that, that's what I'm committing to. And so that's when I hired my coach. And so one of the first areas, we talked about understanding your niche. That was really the first area that we dove into. And it's a challenge, as I'm sure it is for many of, the students that you work with. Like it is a challenge because you're multi-passionate and there's so many different things you want to talk about. And so I feel like with so many health coaches, we end up working with basically like ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
We end up working with that person who is dealing with the issues that we went through. So PMS and digestion, that was really where I started. And so I was putting out a lot of content about my own story around that. And that obviously, connected with a lot of women. And so that was really where I initially started in terms of my niche. And it's obviously grown from there. And I've branched out so much more. And when I say I'm a hormone coach, like hormones do mean a lot of things, of course, but I'm at this point now where I've built my brand over the past 6 years that I can sort of span out, right? I spent those first couple years like really honing in and really getting clear and working on that one niche. And now it's gotten to that point where the community has grown and everything is so much bigger now where, I've really kind of spanned out and deal with not just PMS, but multiple hormonal issues. Yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question.
Yeah, no. Well, the reason I ask is this, because in the program that we have, we give our coaches this kind of guidance. We have these separate exercises. Define who you are, define your target client, define what problem they have. So we guide them through it. However,
Yes.
The percentage of people that graduate really knowing what to do with that and acting on it is still relatively small. And I'm finding, is it because, like you said, most of these people come to coaching because they want to coach, right? This is all still very new to them. And
Right.
I want to kind of draw a parallel too, from the standpoint of being a health coach. If all we're doing is giving our clients information rather than helping them understand what to do with that information and how they can apply it, the results are going to be the same.
Absolutely.
Right? And so thinking about this in terms of the value of a coach and why just knowing it all is not your value so much as caring, keeping all this other stuff.
Yes.
But then for those people that are at this precipice that are like, all right, clearly I don't have whatever it is that makes me this instant self-starter and I need some guidance. There is tremendous value in what a business coach can do for you. And when I heard you say it, I got really serious. Like, this is not negotiable anymore. And you just went ahead and invested in it.
Yes. Yeah,
I love
absolutely. Yeah. And I think for anybody who's listening who might still feel confused about their niche and where to start, like, don't let that be the thing that stops you from doing anything. Like, just move forward. Like, go out there and just post content. Even if you're unclear about exactly who that niche is, like, perhaps the niche will end up finding you, but you just have to get out there and be visible. Like, just do something. I always say, like, you just have to take action if you're unclear, because that will often provide you the clarity.
That is the most consistent soundbite we get from successful health coaches on this podcast.
Amazing.
Do stuff, right? But even to the point of, let's say you're a practicing health coach, newbie coach, and you're trying to figure out your niche. So you come up with something and you roll with it for a bit and you're like, that wasn't, let me go back to the drawing board. There's an element of trial and error.
Totally.
I just feel like you have to get comfortable with that. You're probably not going to knock it out of the park on the first try. I would be really amazed if you did.
Yes. Like, I was working with men's health and kids' health and women's health initially. And it was through that process that I learned, I really don't want to work with men.
Yeah.
I really don't want to work with kids. Like, that's how I figured it out.
I had the same experience, the same idea. You kind of touched on this, how I wanted to help everybody. So I was putting this message out about helping everybody. And the first few clients I got were autoimmune clients. And I don't have an autoimmune disease. I literally can't empathize with what it's like to live with one, what it's like to go on that very strict protocol to deal with one.
Yep.
So the empathy was lacking. So the authenticity was lacking. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to have to go back and change my message because I'm really not the person to help an autoimmune client.
Yep.
And I had to figure it out the hard way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's important. And then it also really puts you in your integrity of who you are as a coach. So,
and that authenticity, we talked about this on a webinar just this week, Laura and I, we hosted a webinar for aspiring coaches. And it was like, if you're delivering an authentic message, it's just way easier to talk it up, to put content out there. It's very hard to pretend to be an autoimmune expert when you're not. Mm-hmm. So just, figure that out.
Yeah. And when you're too broad, that's where a lot of the imposter syndrome comes in, because you're right. You couldn't possibly know it all. Right. It's so true. You have these feelings of, I just don't know enough, and I just like to bring people back to that. I'm like, you do know enough about something, and let's identify what that is.
Yeah. Like you can help one person, guaranteed.
Right. And I went through this one exercise. I've never really talked about this before, but it was really, really helpful. I was like a Toastmasters or something, like one of those, and so if you have a fear of public speaking or you've never spoken in public before, that's a great, just little sidebar, something to look into. But one of the exercises, you just have to kind of get up and start talking about something. Right? They typically don't tell you what to talk about. They want you to draw on your own experiences, right? And so you may find that as you're out there producing content and you have to pick a topic to talk about, it makes sense to pick a topic that you know a lot about, right? And then get out there, and you may find that that's what helps sort of define your niche. So when I would love to, if you don't mind, kind of get into your content. And because one of the biggest questions we get, number one, is how do I market myself? How do I find clients? Where do I put myself out there? Do I have to be on social media? Like what, I would love to hear a little bit about your process on how you got started down that road.
Yeah, absolutely. So content is king, as we know, and it is really how you're going to speak to your client. And so, and with that, producing content means that you're also being very visible. So they kind of go hand in hand. And so I started on Instagram many, many years ago when it first initially launched, and I was really drawn to the platform because I love images and I do a lot of recipe development, and we have a lot of recipes on the blog and whatnot. And so that was I just was so drawn to it. It was such an easy platform for me to get used to. And so I started to post up recipes there and link those recipes back to how it supports your hormones, how it supports PMS and digestion and things like that. So I was creating recipes that was really speaking to my niche. And so Instagram was definitely one of those platforms that I started out with and really, really loved it. I kind of got into the Facebook phase really late. It just wasn't a big thing for me. I kind of went back and forth between Facebook and Instagram. And then the other piece was building my list. That was the other place that I was really producing content and writing a weekly, email to my list and connecting with them there. And essentially I was just repurposing my content, taking what I'm posting on Instagram and taking it and posting it into a newsletter. In fact, my newsletter started before Instagram was even launched. So I was just writing for my list, and then I would take that content and post it to Facebook, or I would take the content and make it into a blog post, and then I would share the blog post on Facebook. And then when Instagram came along, I just added that platform and just kind of did the same thing. So that's kind of where my energy went. I didn't go on Pinterest and which is a wonderful platform, and it would probably even be really ideal for me because there's a lot of recipe development on there and a lot of people go there for recipes. But I just put my energy into one platform, and I was just really rocking it there and really building a community that I was like, I couldn't imagine having 4 or 5 other platforms to go and do this on. So I just picked where it really resonated with me and I stuck there. And then as the platform started to grow with, video and Insta stories and IGTV, I started to grow with the platform. And that's really important as those platforms and those apps, as they grow and release new features, they want you to use those features. And so we know now Insta stories gets way more views than, what shows up on the wall on your feed. And so I do spend more time in my stories and trying to dedicate more time to video, because your audience, they're going to connect with you on such a deeper level if they can see you, if they can hear you, if they can see your mannerisms. Like, all these things matter, and it really helps them to connect with you. And so so that's kind of where I initially started. And then in the past year, just over a year, that's when I launched my podcast. And now that's also becoming a really big referral source for me. But it took time. I laid the groundwork first with everything else and all those other platforms. And once I felt like I'm solid here, like I know exactly what I'm doing here, then I branched out and started the podcast.
Okay.
So how did
much goodness in there.
How did you initially start your list? Because that came before Instagram. That's another thing that comes up. Like, how do I build an opt-in? How do I get that out there? How do I even get people on my list?
Yes. Yeah. So I created, which I actually still have around to this day, my 10-day detox. And so that was initially my opt-in. It was just an ebook that I put together, and I would share it on Facebook, and I would send it out to the list if they were interested to also go through the 10-day detox, and got testimonials from it, and then would share those testimonials. And that's just kind of how it really organically grew in that initial stage. It was just genuinely me sharing it, and then other people sharing it with their friends. And it just started to grow really organically. And then I did start to put money towards ads, but I was in the very beginning phases. So I didn't put a ton of money. Like, I mean, like $5. Like, I would put, $5 to $10 or whatever, $20 a week. Like, it was not a lot of money. And that also helped to grow the list. And so, yeah, that was kind of what that looked like. Also, getting interviewed on other people's podcasts, that was important, and getting in front of other people's audiences, and that was important too. So
cool. I've been working on my list as well, like very much in the background. And one thing I had this realization, this is so dumb, this is so stupid, but I use MailChimp, and because whatever, it's relatively inexpensive and easy. Anyway, for a long time, I wasn't emailing people because I would get personally offended when MailChimp would send me that summary of who unsubscribed.
Totally.
So instead of suffering that pain of like 3 people unsubscribing, I just wouldn't email anybody. Now it's like, okay, I need to get over it, because we had a podcast guest on who reminded us that your email address, your email list you own, and your followers on Instagram and Facebook you don't. Totally. So just another plug for the list. But what I love you said, you touched on a content development strategy that we've taught before. I call it the 3 touches technique. So you write something and it goes in 3 places at least. So you said the same thing. I write a blog post, it goes on Facebook and Instagram. I write an email newsletter, I put it on my blog and on Instagram. Like, literally write something, put it in 3 places, and then you've got a very robust content sort of collection, curation going.
Yes.
So now, how do you, where do you get your inspiration for these topics? Does it just come to you when you're walking around in life and hearing people overhearing conversations at the coffee shop? Or do you have a content calendar where you're trying to be really deliberate in how you put your content out? Or where does the creativity come from?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what your audience, your community is going to tell you what your content should be. So it's really important to listen to them. So if I post something, I'm always paying attention to those comments. What are people asking me? What are they writing back? Like, that's going to now become my next content piece, right? So if I talk about thyroid health, oftentimes the question I get is about thyroid testing, and multiple people will ask, and now I'm like, okay, this needs to be the next piece of content, right? Or just literally ask your community, what can I create for you? Like, they will tell you and they will guide you. And that doesn't mean you have to create that if it's not, in alignment, but it's so important to just ask them. Like, they are there. They want your information. And so ask them what they'd want to hear. And pay attention to those comments, pay attention to all the questions that are going on in your community. If you look to other coaches who perhaps have the same niche as you do. They might inspire you and see what they're what they're creating. What's their community asking them? There's, especially with the internet and all the social media that we have access to, like there's no shortage of going online and doing the research and just pulling up a few questions and some topics. Yeah. And also, diving into your story, like really sit with your story. What is the pain that you went through? What was that struggle like? How did you feel? What did you do to come through that? Like that could be broken up into so many different pieces of content. And so tap into that story and share that for sure.
Definitely. Cool. So you are working in the one-on-one space still. And you mentioned that you have some online programs, but you still are coaching one-on-one. And remind me who you're coaching again. You do women's hormones.
Yes. So specialize in weight loss and women's hormonal health. Yes. And I never thought that I would do weight loss. It was not initially what I wanted to do, but so many women were asking for weight loss support. And it just was one of those things where I just couldn't avoid it. And also with working with hormones, I would often find that there would be some type of hormonal issue going on combined with weight gain.
Right.
So then it was like, okay, it just makes sense to really put the two together. And so that's how I really started to dive into weight loss. And the thing is like, I never had a weight loss story. So that was never my thing. Like I had a hard time, like trying to relate and whatnot. I could relate to the hormonal piece, but at the same time, I also recognized that there was this really huge gap in the industry in terms of weight loss and what was being taught. And there often isn't this education around how our hormones can really dictate weight loss and weight gain. And so I thought, yeah, this is going to be a really key thing for me to educate women on, because I don't want them to get just caught up on the scale. I don't want them to get caught up on the calories in, the calories out. And, don't get me wrong, sometimes these things can matter, but there's a bigger picture here and I want to be able to teach that. And so that's how I started to dive into that.
Good.
Oh my gosh, I love
Great.
that.
That's good.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I was going to
Thanks.
say because when I asked you earlier about your health journey,
Yes.
I wasn't getting a sense that you ever struggled with weight. And because a question we get a lot from people is, I never had a health transformation that I can relate a coaching business to. And it's like, sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes you can you can have some adjacent knowledge that
Totally
can lend itself to a particular niche.
Yeah. I mean, and like in your case, you said like autoimmune was just not your thing. And that's fine. If it's the thing you don't want to do, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're getting that pull and you're getting that urge and seeing that there's really an opportunity here for me to dive in deeper, then great, go with that. So that's what I did with weight loss.
Absolutely. There's just so much nonsense. I was talking about this the other day. I think it was on the live webinar Erin and I just did, and we were talking about one of the things that drives me nuts is this new, I can't remember if it's Jenny Craig or if it's Nutrisystem, but the underlying message of the commercials are, it's so easy, just eat the food and lose weight. Just eat the food and lose weight. So yeah, as long as all you ever do is just buy their food and you're always on a diet and you don't worry about any of their fixing any of the other reasons that got you overweight in the first place. Like it's just so unsustainable to me. But this is the message that not only women, but also men are getting, that it's just, let's, put your reliance on something else, on some product, another company to tell you what you need to do, rather than learning to listen to your own body and understand what's going on.
Totally. Oh my God. I know. I've seen that commercial and I can't remember if it's the Jenny Craig or whatever it is, but I know what you're talking about. And I run an online weight loss program, and it's so crazy how women, like one of the biggest things we hear from the women in the group is like, this is just such a really supportive group. Like I'm learning so much about my hormones. I'm learning so much about health, or they'll come in the group and be like, I totally fell off the wagon and I ate this and I did that. Oh my God. And I feel like shit. And they're like going off the radar. And I'm just like, it's okay. Like, yeah, it's okay. you're human. Like they have this idea that I'm about to like
Right.
get mad at them or like, and I'm just like, no, it's okay. Like, let's really not be so hard on ourselves. So it's like, I really want to teach women that you can have the health and you can have the weight loss and you can have all of that, but like, let's tie in some of the knowledge and really tune in to our bodies and our hormones and know the inner workings. And also like, let's tap into that self-care and that self-love and like, let's just tie it all together.
Yeah, it's diet culture, and
I know.
I can think of all the intake forms I've had from past clients. 75% of them said, "Oh, I did Jenny Craig. It worked pretty good." It's
Right.
like clearly it didn't, or we wouldn't be having this conversation. But actually,
Right.
I just had I had a consultation with a potential new client this morning, and she was concerned. She said, and this comes up a lot too. I'm sure both of you have heard this, and probably a lot of people listening have heard this. She said one of her hesitations in signing up with me was that she's done so many other programs. She's bought so many other programs and they didn't work. Why is this one any different? Am I going to keep throwing money at this problem or what? And I said, well, if you could identify what the thing was that didn't work, has consistently not been working, why these programs didn't work for you, that you invested money in, what do you think that would be? And her answer was, I think I just don't have willpower. And I'm like, that's the problem. Diet culture told you that you need to just work that willpower muscle. And if you don't have that, then you're dead in the water. It's like, so that's the education that women need to understand, like to your point, intuition, understanding how their body works, and then willpower goes away. I just feel for people because I kind of work in the same space that you do.
Totally. And I just want to touch on that because that's a really powerful conversation to have in a prospect call. Like that's a huge opportunity to dive in and have a real honest conversation with somebody, because conversions happen inside of conversations. Okay. And so for someone to tell you and be honest with you that it's the willpower, well, now you've opened up this door to really dive in and coach this person, and they can now see how you're a missing link. You're the coach they need to work with because you're the one that's going to dive into that gap that nobody else did for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a former coworker. She's a primal health coach. So she's part of our community or whatever, but she did the Weight Watchers program 30 times.
Oh man.
30 times. And she was such a success. She said it so many times. She eventually became a Weight Watchers coach.
For sure.
Right. To try to help other people. And then she sort of found, this lifestyle, something eventually clicked, but she just sort of found a way of eating that, again, just worked for her long term. It wasn't the willpower because she wasn't still trying to suck down processed low fat brownies, right? To cure her sugar addiction. She just learned how to structure the way she ate in a way that eliminated the dang craving. Right. Totally. And so it's all about the whole problem with this notion of willpower is it's not that you don't have the willpower. It's that your environment is set up so that that willpower, quote unquote, willpower is challenged every time. Totally. So let's focus on one step at a time. You're not the problem. The environment is. Let's figure out how to adjust that. Yes. And all that stuff kind of follows. And something you said about how people that are in your group will think that you're going to be mad at them.
Yeah.
This comes up with some of my coaching calls. Oh, Coach Laura, she's going to be either really proud of me or not proud of me. And I'm like, I am always proud of you. Always proud of you. You don't need to seek my approval because you have it, right? It's your way of viewing your choices that's causing the angst in you. I will celebrate what you view to be your successes. I think that's awesome. Anything that's going to perpetuate you forward.
Absolutely.
Right. But it's not my job to make you feel bad over another choice. Trust me, you give yourself plenty of that shit.
For sure.
It's everywhere.
For sure.
Yeah. You don't need me to do that.
That.
Let's just look at it as a learning opportunity. What did we learn from that?
Right.
What did we find out about our body and the environment? So in your group program, how do you facilitate that kind of message?
Yeah. So we do, my coach and I, my other coach, her and I do Q&A. So we alternate week by week. And so 1 week her, 1 week me. And we just go in there and we just do Q&A and we go live and we ask them questions tell them, we ask them to show up and ask us their questions, what's going on, what's working, what's not working. Like, let's navigate this together. Like we're in this together. And, we're always monitoring the group throughout the week and daily and seeing what questions are coming up. And if I do happen to see like more negativity or something come up, or women being really hard on themselves, then that's my cue to be like, okay, it's time for me to go in here and like just break this cord right now. Like people hire you to say the things that nobody else is going to say. And that's uncomfortable. But as a coach, like you got to own that. You got to really step up and be okay with having those difficult conversations with somebody, because nobody in their life is having that conversation. All the other people in their lives are like, it's okay, have the wine. It's okay, have that extra piece of cake. Or why aren't you having it? It's like, that's all around them. But for the coach to come in and be like, no, let's dive into this and like really like navigate it together and figure it out. You got to say the hard things sometimes. And so so that's kind of how we navigate it inside our group. We're just there. We're there to answer their questions. We're there to support them and give them as much love as we possibly can with a little bit of ass kicking.
Yeah, I think coaches need to remember that coaching is a relationship. It's not really a product or a program, although we do have products and programs, but the relationship is what is the needle mover. So I do like to dive in a little bit to like the real tactics of programs. I think that helps people a little bit. So I'm hearing is that your group program is facilitated. Is it through Facebook?
Yes, through a Facebook group.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. And then additional to Facebook, how are you delivering content via an email service? Is that delivered daily? Like what's sort of the real brick and mortar stuff of your program?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an 8-week program and we have a membership area. So when members sign up, they get access to a whole sort of like membership vault. And within the membership area, there's all the 8 weeks of content. And so, yeah, they can go ahead and access all of it, but we're very, very clear with them that if we're starting on week 1 and you're coming in and asking about week 6, we're not going to answer that. Like we're keeping you focused on week 1. And so they do get like a weekly email, just a reminder that goes out to let them know like, okay, we're diving into week 2. Here's the materials to go download and, make sure you log into your membership area. So yeah, so we do have weekly email, and then we have the membership area. And the reason we have the membership area that's fairly new is just because there's a ton of stuff that we deliver to them every week. And we just wanted to like have it in one space that they can go and get it. And then we have the Facebook group, and that's just been the easiest way for us to connect with everybody and for the community to engage with each other, to do the live videos. It's just really accessible that way.
And then once the 8 weeks is up, are they left in the Facebook group, or are they kind of that group archived? How do you kind of close that up?
Yeah. So I let them stay in the group, and I let them know that when we are running the group, like for the 8-week challenge, like when it's live, that's when we'll be more active in here. And when we, launch again and bring in new members, you're more than welcome to come and join in on the reset again. And the reason I do that is because there's over 200 women in that group, and some of them do fall off, and then, schedules get in the way. Like the content isn't changing. So I don't need to kick them out. But if I upgraded the content and there was all this new stuff, then that might be a different story. But because the content is the same, like they still have access to it anyway. So by all means, if they want to come in and join the next round and get some support, we're here for them. That's not a problem.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is that membership vault housed on your website someplace, or is it through another platform like a Practice Better or any one of the other coaching platforms?
It's through WordPress. So I think it's called Wishlist. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, it's called Wishlist. Now, you can create it inside ClickFunnels as well, which is what we did before, but it was a little bit messier. And I found that we were getting a ton of customer service questions around it. So I was like, this is just not working. So we put it into Wishlist. I'm not 100% certain that's what it's called, but I think so. And it's basically just like a membership plugin that you can add to your WordPress. And I think it's just a yearly fee that you pay for. And it's not that expensive, like maybe $200 or something like that, give or take. And yeah.
Pays for itself.
Yeah, that's how we do it. Yeah. And then you also asked about, at the end of the 8 weeks, kind of what happens. Typically, a lot of those women will end up coming on board as one-on-one coaching clients, and they'll want to dive deeper into like the hormone, like Dutch test, and they'll want to get more customization and more one-on-one support. Yeah, that's typically what happens there.
Well, let's go through that then, because one-on-one seems to be sort of more your flagship space. So let's say I want to work with you. How does this start?
Yeah, so basically what we do is, it's funny you're asking because we're actually changing a lot of it because I'm stepping back from one-on-one in such a big way and my other coach is really taking over. So typically you would come on board. It's a 3-month program. And we start off with getting you your Dutch test, which is your Dutch hormone test. And it's a urine test. It gets shipped to your house. And it's a very simple test that you do at home. And so you would do your test. About 2 weeks later, your results would come in. And so once your results are in, we connect you. I have a naturopath that works with us as well. So I hook them up with a call with the naturopathic doctor, and they'll hop on a call with her, and she will interpret the Dutch test with them via Zoom. So it's great because then we record it, and then they can get the recording after. And then after that, they work with their coach for the remaining 3 months, and their coach will put together all their nutrition and supplement and lifestyle protocols, and you'll touch base with your coach over that 3-month period. And that's kind of what that looks like. So there's a lot more customization and more checking in and a lot of accountability and, obviously the one-on-one support. And we do oftentimes, if anybody does want to invest in one of our, higher end coaching one-on-one programs, we do typically just give them access to like the 8-week online program because it already contains the nutritional sort of like foundation, and it's had such a high success rate that we kind of like just let them go through that program on their own. And so that's what that kind of looks like. We're actually in the process of revamping things a little bit, and I'm putting together an actual 6-month group coaching program right now, just because I feel that women need that ongoing support. And oftentimes at the end of the 3 months, they do stay on board and they do want more ongoing support and coaching, or they want to invest in some other testing, perhaps, genetic testing or gut health, like the GI map test. And so we're putting together a more exclusive 6-month program, and it's actually going to take all of our online programs and it's putting it into that 6-month program, that they'll get access to all of that, but they also get the one-on-one support as well as the group coaching support.
Wow. Okay. So no, that's awesome. What's interesting. So very similar, like my group program is also 6 weeks, but my individual program is actually 12 weeks. Right. So it's very similar that way.
Yes.
Now my question around testing, because this is something that comes up a lot, especially related to scope of practice. Here in the US, it's a little different than Canada. It's about as clear as mud. Every state has its own laws,
Totally.
But so I love the idea of, connecting your clients to either a naturopathic or functional medicine practitioner to actually interpret those results accordingly.
Yes.
That's awesome. So I assume you're paying that practitioner somehow. Is that just embedded in the cost of your fee?
Absolutely. Yep. I pay her what her hourly rate is, and just take that out of our coaching fee. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you've got your ongoing coaching. And then is the idea that people can then sort of re-up into this 6-month option for ongoing, or do you anticipate selling that as a totally separate product from the beginning?
Yeah, we will most likely not have the one-on-one coaching anymore. The one-on-one coaching will be available for those who join us in the 6-month program. So that's how you get access to myself and my other coach, and the testing is you come through the 6-month program. So in terms of price-wise, it will actually remain the same in terms of if you were doing the 3 months with us. It's just that we want to be able to offer you the group support as well, and something a little bit longer term. And so we're in the process of just figuring out all the logistics around it right now.
Yeah, just think that can make a lot of sense, because when I really take a look at my individual clients, almost half of them opt for another 12 weeks.
Yep.
That typically speaks. So and the reason my individual program is 12 weeks is I just find 8 weeks isn't enough, and for real behavior change, right? I just think the
Totally.
expectation from a group program to an individual program, but then we have
Yep.
those that have made some real progress at 12 weeks, but they
Totally.
just don't feel totally ready to be on their own, or they've got something else they want to focus on. Hey, I've tackled
Yes.
such and such. I'm successful here. I want to hire you now to focus on something else.
Yep.
Because I had a question from somebody that I was talking to yesterday about, hey, how do you keep your clients with you? How do you basically keep them paying? This is someone who
Yes.
comes from more of a fitness background. I'm like, this is a little bit different. The ultimate goal really should be success and that they graduate. And by the
For
way,
sure.
those are my best referrers, right?
Yes.
However, that doesn't mean that those clients don't have something else they want to work on,
Of
that
course.
they don't, life changes, something else happens. So this kind of stuff happens along the way. But I just find that really interesting. And I'm fascinated to see how this changed to more of a, because I've been reluctant to do 6 months because it just sounds so long.
Yeah, it does. And I was reluctant too. And I'm sure you've probably heard about like, you should create a membership program. And, part of me was like, I'm not really sure about that. And just to even think about like 12 months of content, like, oh my God, that seems like a lot to do. So I was like, how can I make it like a membership, but like a mini membership? So it's 6 months. And then this way I can bring in, like, I really want to create this hub where it's like everything that you needed support with and wanted to get, your questions answered around, you'll find it here in the 6 months. Like you don't need to go somewhere else, unless it's something very serious and we do need to like refer you to that specialist, then by all means. But so that's kind of what I was thinking in terms of the 6-month program. And then this way they can go through our reset for 8 weeks. They can get their Dutch test and work with the naturopath and work with their coach. We'll have different practitioners and guests come in and teach a different topic every month. And we'll have, all the meal plan, whatever it is that you guys are asking for, like we can create that through in the 6 months. And I also feel like one of the biggest things is just the community. Like people need that community and that tribal connection with women and that support and that accountability, because I can tell you right now, just in our 8-week program, like that's coming to an end soon. And they're all just like, what happens at the end of the 8 weeks? Where do I go? What do I do? And it's just like, yeah, like this needs to be ongoing.
No.
Transformation, it
Mm.
takes time.
Yes.
So we really want to support that process.
Nice. Very good. That was great. Thank you for sharing all that detail. I think that stuff really, really helps coaches understand how this unpacks when they go into business. Okay, so a couple other things you have going on. You have a podcast, and you kind of dropped before we pressed record that you've written a book. So let's talk about those two things. What's the podcast about? Is it for the female health consumer?
Yes. So it's called Healthy Hormones for Women. So very clear. And I struggled for months trying to think of the title of the podcast. And like, it's one of those things where I kind of beat myself up over like, oh my God, like I really should have launched it way sooner, but it is what it is. Because my business name is Holistic Wellness. And so that's what I was going to call it. But as I really sort of sat with it, I was like, people are going to go into iTunes or Spotify or wherever, and they're going to search a topic. Like it's searchable. So how do I want them to find me? They're probably not going to type in holistic wellness. I mean, unless they're already in my community and know me, but they're going to search for hormones. They're going to search for PMS and menopause and thyroid and all of that. So that's when I was like, okay, Healthy Hormones for Women. And I had already had an online program called Healthy Hormones for Women. So it just really kind of fit. So that was the name that I went with. And I started it just over a year ago, and it has been so much fun. And it's just another avenue for me to connect with my audience. And as we know, audio is just so wonderful, and it's very easy to listen to on the way to work or whatever it might be. And I used to blog back in the day, but that's just kind of taken a bit of a back seat, and I don't really do so much of that anymore. So that's why it just made sense to really be on audio. And yeah, so I've just been doing the podcast. It releases every Tuesday, a new episode. And so I do some solo ones as well as interview people. And it's just been really, really fun. And we just get so many like different messages from women saying how much it's like really helped them transform their lives or their relationship to food and their body. So it's really amazing. So yeah, so that's the podcast. And then in December 2019, I got my very first book published and released. So that was my book baby. Yes, I birthed that. That was my whole journey. I was of all of 2019, basically. And so yeah, the 30-day hormone solution, that's the name of my book. And it's basically, if I could spend 30 days with somebody, like what could I teach them? Like what could I teach a woman about detox and sleep and her hormones and health and nutrition? Like what would I teach her? So that's what's in the book, the 30-day hormone solution. Yeah. So I put it in there, and it got written quite quickly because my publisher is in the US and they just move way faster in the US than they do here in Canada. And so yeah. So I have, a lot of friends who are Canadian authors, and they have like 2 to 3 years to write their book. And I had like 3 months. So like 3 to 4 months. So the first half of 2019, it's a blur to me. I don't really know what happened. And I was just like cooped up in the house writing the book, and it's got 60 amazing gluten-free, grain-free recipes as well. So I'm really proud of those recipes. And yeah, and that book, I get a lot of health coaches asking me about that whole process of writing a book, and they want to be an author and all of that. And it's a 15-year journey. I think that if I was offered that book deal 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there's no way it would have been the book that it was meant to be. And my message, it would have really gone across, because I needed to go through my own growing pains and my own transformation to really get to a point where I felt like I do have a message to share, and this is it. And so it takes time, it takes time to come to that realization. And I think for health coaches that are listening, like in the beginning phase, trust me, when I first started out being a nutritionist, that was the first thing, was like, oh yeah, I want to be an author. I want to write a book. Right. And I want to be on TV. Like you want to do all of these things, and I get it, but it's like I said, it's been a 15-year process of coaching people and really working with people and building that expertise, that it came in the right time. And so I really trusted and honored that it was the right time to do that.
So did you have the idea and you approached a publisher, or did somebody approach you?
Yeah. So I actually had a girlfriend of mine who recommended me to her publisher. And she was like, I think you guys should really connect, because, you already have such a big community and a great following and such a great message. So she's like, I'm just going to connect the two of you. And I was like, okay, cool. So they ended up just calling me up, and I was not even prepared, because I knew like I was having this call with them, but I didn't realize like technically that call was like an interview process. And so I just got on the call just thinking like, we're just going to have this casual chat, but like, no, they were like totally interviewing me about and asking me all these different questions. And I was like totally flustered, but, made it through. It was all good. And then literally they just sent me an email like later that day and were like, okay, we're like, let's move forward. Great.
Amazing.
That was the quickest process ever. Yeah. So that's how that kind of worked. And at the same time, like I've spent a good 5 to 6 years, like building my online community and Instagram community and following and a podcast. Like I have the audience, right? So they were also looking at that as well, right? I wasn't really starting from ground zero. So yeah, so then wrote it, and it got released in December. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I feel like the pull quote for this episode can be something along the lines of like, confidence will come if you put in the reps, and all of this takes practice and laying groundwork, and that just comes back to getting started. Like 15 years ago when you got started, getting started is what got you to build the audience, to get the podcast, to get the audience, to get the book. Like the book couldn't have happened at the gate. Like, things can't.
For sure.
We really do have to put that horse right in front of the cart. Unfortunately, I know we all want the quick fix. Everybody wants a quick fix, and there's always so many parallels between entrepreneurship and health transformation. You know, we wouldn't we expect our clients to put in the work to reclaim their health. And yet we seem to want a quick fix when it comes to building a business and building an audience.
Totally. It's all the same thing. Yeah. It really is the same.
And there's so much about kind of your journey that is relatable to people, meaning, you know, you went and got a degree in something you're not even really using, found it interesting, but not even really using, right? And then, but decided to kind of follow this passion, and we're just sort of making ends meet. Because I think that's what a lot of people envision is going to happen if they follow this path, is I'm going to be in this situation where, you know, I'm kind of just barely getting by, and it doesn't have to be that way. You know, if you're focusing on the business, if you want to be a business owner, you got to focus on the business. You know, and Erin, I don't know about you, but I figured that out the hard way too, you know, that it was, if I'm just passionate enough and I talk about this stuff enough, my clients will come. And that did, like you, I got clients along the way.
For sure.
You know, and that was great for me because at the time, that's probably all I could really handle. I was still working full-time in another job. I was a single mom. I had 2 kids that were in travel sports. And so, I mean, honestly, but, you know, I do fundamentally believe that things would have happened for me faster.
For sure.
Had I had that business hat on more so than the nutrition or coaching hat on.
Right. Because it brought structure.
Yeah.
Right. In our initial phases of just starting out and doing it on our own, like there wasn't structure or guideline. Like we're just flying off by the seat of our pants.
That's right.
Like,
You're just throwing shit at a wall and taking a look at what sticks, you know?
Yeah.
So I just absolutely love that. And that I hope people listening could hear a bit of your path and been like, yep, I get it, you know, and know that where they are right now is totally okay. And it's where you're supposed to be right now. Because think back of what led you to where you are. Was there anything from back here that leads you to believe you should be someplace else right now? No? Okay, well, let's think about where you do want to go. What do you need to do between now and there? So that where you are in 5 years from now is the exact perfect moment and where you're supposed to be, and start taking steps in that direction, because it's action that makes the difference.
Absolutely. And I also think like coaches will need to make an investment.
Yes.
Like you can't expect to have a 6-figure, a multiple 6-figure business, whatever it is that you want, and not invest any money in that. Like, yeah, especially if you expect your clients to invest in you and get that transformation for themselves, but you don't know what it's like to put down that money and do it for yourself, that's going to be a hard sell.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for you as it is for your clients. So like at some point, yeah, you will have to level up and like really make that investment to dive in.
It's a great takeaway. If you don't invest in the business won't grow, right? So what is going to grow is what it is you invest in.
Absolutely.
It's great to grow your knowledge. Absolutely. But you know what? You're never going to know it all, ever. I'm sorry. Doctors don't know it all, right? PhDs don't know it all. So you're never going to know it all. So take what you already know and build something amazing out of that. You can always add more knowledge later, but earn the right to get there so that you have the funds to pay for that kind of stuff.
Right.
And to step out on your own. So this was really helpful for me. I think it was really helpful for everybody listening too.
I sure hope so. Thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing your journey. It was a perfect example of what the work looks like and feels like. It's not glamorous. It just needs to be done, putting in the reps, and 15 years later, you really can have an empire. You're not going to have an empire right out the gate, but you can have one.
Absolutely. Yeah. It all comes in the right time and in the right sequence.
Yeah.
Honor that. So where can people find you? Let us know what's the best place.
Yeah. So I'm hanging out on Instagram at Holistic Wellness Foodie, because Holistic Wellness was taken. So we added foodie on the end. So Holistic Wellness Foodie. My website, holisticwellness.ca. And if anybody does want to check out the book, The 30-Day Hormone Solution, they can head to hormonesolutionbook.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Samantha. This was awesome.
Thank you. My pleasure.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.